Okay, let's finish out the chapter. This video is going to be sections 3 and 4. So you'll remember from the last video that water is a polar molecule. It does not share its electrons equally, so it has one side of the molecule that is more positive and one side of the molecule that is more negative. This allows water to form what's called a hydrogen bond. A hydrogen bond is a weak attraction between a slightly positive hydrogen atom that is in a compound, in a molecule, with the slightly negative atom of another molecule of that same compound. It can occur between atoms of different molecules or within the same molecule. A single hydrogen bond is broken very easily, but whenever you have lots and lots of hydrogen bonds, they become quite strong. So this helps maintain the proper structure and function of complex molecules, such as proteins and DNA. So these hydrogen bonds are very important, and very important for our bodies to work the way that they need to. So here we have a bunch of water molecules. We have an electron model, we have a ball and stick model, a space filling model, and then here we can see the actual attraction between the oxygen of one water molecule to the hydrogen of another. So one hydrogen bond is very weak, but whenever you have a whole bunch of them, they become very, very strong. Properties of water. So because of these hydrogen bonds, water molecules cling together. This gives them many unique chemical properties, including its high heat capacity, which means that water can absorb a lot of energy, a lot of thermal energy, without there being a great change in its temperature. Because of this, the temperature of water rises and falls very slowly. That's why it's nice to get in the pool in the summertime, because it takes a lot of energy to heat that water up so it stays cool for a long time. This also means that the water that is inside of our bodies doesn't change temperature very quickly. So you have to add a lot of energy or take away a lot of energy for our body temperatures to change very greatly. Okay, so here we have a phase diagram showing the amount of energy that must be added to water for its temperature to change. This is why we all flock to water in the summertime, because it's hot. Okay, animals like to be in the water when it's hot. I don't know how many times I've driven by a pond in the middle of July that has a herd of cows standing in it, because they're cooler standing in the water than they are whenever they are out of the water. Okay, water also has a high heat of evaporation, which means it takes a lot of energy for it to evaporate. And whenever it does evaporate, it takes a lot of heat with it, takes a lot of energy with it. So whenever you sweat, every time a water molecule is removed from your skin, it's taking energy with it to transform from the liquid state of sweat on your skin into the gaseous state of water vapor in the air. Water is also a solvent, which means that it dissolves things very easily due to its polarity. So polar substances dissolve easily in water. Non-polar things like oil do not. And whenever water is used to dissolve things, it becomes a solution because it contains dissolved substances, which are called solutes. So here we have salt dissolved in water. The negative portion of the oxygen becomes attracted to the positive sodium ion, and the negative portion of the water molecule becomes attracted to the negative chloride ion. Water molecules are cohesive and adhesive. Cohesion is the ability of water molecules to cling to each other due to their hydrogen bonding, which makes water flow very easily, and it's what gives us surface tension. So in class, I'll do a demonstration where I drop a needle onto the top of a glass of water or a beaker of water. You can do that with pepper, but if I were to add soap to my water, that breaks the surface tension, and the needle and the pepper will fall to the bottom. Adhesion is the ability of water molecules to cling to other surfaces, and it's also due to water's polarity. And this is actually how plants draw water up from their roots. So the water will actually attach to the tissue in the plant, and whenever it evaporates out of its leaves, it's basically like a big, long soda straw. So whenever the top molecule evaporates, it pulls all of them up in a chain reaction so that the next one is ready to evaporate. Cohesion and adhesion account for water transport in plants and in blood vessels. So here we have water as a transport medium, showing the water enters the root of the plant. The water molecules cling together, so cohesion, and they also adhere to the sides of the vessels in the stem, and so water will actually evaporate out of the leaves, and it will pull that water column up with it. So that is how dissolved substances get pulled from the roots to the very tippy top of the tree. Frozen water is less dense than liquid water, which means that it floats. So at temperatures below 4 degrees Celsius, hydrogen bonds between water become more rigid, but also more open. So they become much more structured. And so water expands until it reaches 0 degrees Celsius and it freezes solid. So because it is less dense, it floats on top of the water. If it didn't have this property, if it didn't expand as it froze, then the ice would sink to the bottom, and all of our major bodies of water, or any body of water for that matter, would freeze solid instead of from the top down. Because the ice is on top, it acts as an insulator and keeps the top layer frozen, but the bottom layer is still liquid, so living organisms can survive in it. So that's why these seals can survive, because the ice is floating on top. If water did not have this property, the entire oceans would freeze. Okay, moving on to acids and bases. This is section 4. pH is a measure of hydrogen ion concentration in a solution. We're actually going to do a lab either late this week or early next week to discuss pH. We're going to look at the pH of different household chemicals. When water ionizes or dissociates, it releases an equal number of hydrogen ions, which is H+, and an equal number of hydroxide ions. So water is constantly breaking down and reforming these bonds. Now, acids are substances that whenever they dissociate in water, they release a hydrogen ion. Bases are the opposite. They are substances that either take up those hydrogen ions, they take the extras, or they will release hydroxide ions. The pH scale is used to indicate the acidity or the alkalinity of a solution. So acids are substances on that scale from 0 to 7. 7 is neutral, and anything that is from a 7 to a 14 is basic or alkaline. Each change in pH represents a tenfold change in the hydrogen ion concentration. So the pH of 4 is 10 times as acidic as the pH of a 5. And a pH of 5 is 100 times more basic than a pH of 7. So here we have an example of the pH scale. Stomach acid, very acidic. Urine, slightly acidic. Baking soda, basic or alkaline. Household bleach, pretty basic. And sodium hydroxide, very basic. A buffer is a chemical or a combination of chemicals that helps keep that pH stable. The health of organisms requires maintaining the pH of body fluids within a very narrow window. So human blood is slightly acidic. If it drops below a 7, acidosis results, and if it rises above a 7.8, alkalosis results. Both are life-threatening and need to be addressed. Our bodies have built-in mechanisms to prevent those pH changes. So, for example, carbonic acid is a buffer that dissociates and reforms due to changes in the pH. And that is it, guys. If you have any questions, let me know.